Good afternoon to everybody on, well, I think the little bit gray side, and good evening to everybody who's joining from my side of the world, sunny Chicago, as you might see on the background. It's time to get my windows cleaned. Great again with both you and Derek Faye. Thank you all for joining us once again in Vesper's bi-weekly effort to keep you guys updated on everything that's happening in dairy markets. And have things been happening in dairy markets, Jasper?
No, not really, right? No, we absolutely a lot of movement. Non-fat S&P prices off the charts. We've seen a lot of movement with not too many fundamental reasons if you look at Europe, for example.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not been the quiet market that some had expected over the past weeks.
So we need to dive deep into the data.
Yeah, I think it really depends on which products. Some products have been extremely quiet. Liquidity has been extremely scarce. And some products, which is also extremely interesting, don't really represent the fundamentals that we're seeing. So I think it'll be interesting to jump into these.
Yep.
I love, it's one of the things that I love.
Definitely. I think it's good to mention that in January, we usually see quite a slow start to the year. Many players go on holiday, have a nice break, have locked in their volumes for the end of 2025. And just make sure that in the first few weeks of January, nothing really happens until people really need to. This year, however, because prices were already low, there was like less of a necessity to lock in a lot of volumes late December. People were like, well, you know what, in January, I might pick up some cheap product. Didn't really materialize.
Well, there has been I think January was a good month in terms of a lot were sold for sure. And I think that there was a good consumption for Jan. That's what we thought. But what it turned out is January actually was quite a bad consumption, especially on the bakery side of things. We actually see a decrease in terms of butter consumption for croissants, etc. Which is extremely interesting. Which I find, kind of a weak consumption with. I mean, we're seeing the numbers that we're having in terms of milk production. It's insane.
Yeah.
So when you really look at just pure fundamentals, you don't take positions into account. You don't take that into account. You just take dairy fundamentals. We are in a bearish sentiment, and it's especially for fats. I mean here.
Yep.
Liquids are low. It's good margins if you want to make butter. So it is a very interesting market with a market that's not moving. No offers are coming out, which is extreme. I've never seen this.
Yep.
So it's one of the first time, and it's always interesting, but it's it's one of the first time that that happens.
Okay, well, let's do. I before we totally set off onto our dairy rampant. Let's have a quick structure check. Jasper, we'll do an old school episode where we'll go past all major product groups and try to cover the regions that have shown us the most movement.
Yep.
Perfect.
Non-fat S&P in that case, but yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, let's get started. I think. You have a dashboard prepared for us.
Of course, happy to share my screen. So some of the price movements we've already mentioned before are shown here in US dollars a ton. We've seen a massively increasing or sharply increasing market for skimmed non-fat dry milk as well. And we've reached levels above $3,000 a ton over the past few days. And it's really been firing up since the start of January. I think it's really interesting to see that if we look at the latest prices for the 31st of December, in this case, that was a Wednesday, it's still very stable compared to the weeks before. Also for the US and also in Europe, we didn't really see much change. But the first week of January, it already kicked off. And as I mentioned, it's quite unusual. Usually we have a couple of weeks that are relatively quiet, and then people start to take positions. But in this case, it kicked off early. The GDT event at the start of January also didn't really help, or at least it helped kick off the market. But it really triggered a bit of a bullish sentiment. But it was the US that really pulled everything upwards. And some people ask, okay, but what happened exactly? Well, I'll move into that later. But the impact it had on other products is also quite remarkable, because even a European butter, for example, moved up because of U.S. non-fat, and that's a situation that it only happens because of the sentiment. It doesn't really
Yeah.
happen because of fundamentals. Those two are not directly connected. But it's much more about, okay, we think milk powder prices should stay stable, possibly go down a little bit. They don't, and then suddenly everybody needs to switch positions, buy back a lot of product, and that's really what drove other markets outside of the milk powder market.
Yeah, and let's not forget, right? Skim is a very international and a global
Yeah.
a global market, so it is also something that we often see whenever one of the market is undervalued compared to the other, or overvalued compared to the other. They
Yep.
kind of move in line,
Yep.
and they follow each other. So of course, it was to be seen when the US went up that the rest would follow as well.
Yep.
But yeah, it's an insane volatility that I think a lot of people did not expect.
Yep.
that.
And to go into the explanation on what happened a little bit before we go into the many other product categories that we have. Essentially, the production of milk powders slowed down significantly towards the end of 2025. We didn't have as much as many anticipated. I mean, the entire year of 2025 wasn't great. But if we move from, in this case, it's still metric tons, so roughly 73,000 tons to volumes of 54, 48, and 57,
Mhm.
that's a decrease of almost 30%.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And that's massive. And that's really what well, caught a little bit, or a few people off guard. They anticipated that there would be product that wasn't really there.
But
And
where did the mill go?
that's the thing. It went to the different product streams. It went into fresh packaging, so some of the milk that was produced simply went into the fresh stream. Milk proteins also took up plenty of
Probably,
milk,
yeah.
and ultimately non-fat and SMP are not really the most rewarding products. So to say, they're not the most profitable.
Mhm.
Especially now that butter is also not really earning you much anymore. It's much more interesting to go for cheese, to go for milk protein concentrate. There's many other streams that really earn back a lot more money. So non-fat is not really preferred anymore. And in Q4 we really saw that take place. Some downtime at factories also played a role. So it wasn't just the financial side of it. There was also some practical issues. But that meant that at the start of Jan, the amount of product on offer was low.
Yeah.
And especially in a market that's low on offers, low on liquidity to a certain extent, it really means that prices can shoot up fast. And well, what we saw as well is that the December stock levels for the US for non-fat also were relatively low. It wasn't extremely low, but it was just the amount on offer from producers, from manufacturer traders was relatively low, while a lot of people were looking for it. And that's when especially futures kicked off. We saw that prices moved from 118 dollar cents a pound halfway throughout January. It really, and well, here we already see that on the 6th, that was the day of the GDT. We already saw that there was an increase, but the real increase really came on the 20th. That's when we moved from 118 to
Yeah.
a peak of 158
Yeah.
US dollar cents a pound.
No, it is crazy. What I really wonder is this because consumption really increased that much, or is it because we had traders that basically had positions to fulfill?
I think it's a combination of that, but also on the procurement side, many procurement managers, they kind of gotten used to cheap S&P prices, that there's no real need to lock a lot in advance, because there was a high likelihood that you'll probably get a relatively cheap price later on. So the pipelines were also not full of milk powder on the procurement side. So it was a situation where some people who actually physically needed the product wanted to buy, but at the same time traders also wanted to buy back positions. So it's not just physical, not just futures, both markets really shot up. Because if both those players are looking for product when manufacturers don't really have that much to sell in a low liquid market, it just shoots up like it has been.
Yeah.
And that's where the also the global nature of milk powder really comes back into play. Yes, also in Europe, we saw that just before the end of the year, there was a lot of volume sold and exported, but the the amount of offer was relatively fine. The amount of product we had wasn't really low enough to trigger price increases from, what is it, $2,400 a ton to $2,900 a ton. That's a 20% increase. That's not fundamentally, or at least a bit fundamentally driven, but there's also a big layer of sentiment on top.
Yeah, exactly. I think that one was highlighted by the other. That's the sentiment pushed it even higher. It was supposed to increase a bit, but that sentiment just really made it take off.
Yep. Oh,
and we are in and I mean, it is what we've seen recently. I mean, it's interesting to see it in S&P because we haven't really seen that before. Very stable market. We weren't expecting really big price move in S&P, but it is something we've seen in butter over the last year, proteins. We've seen in the last year, cheeses. We've seen in the last year. An extremely sensitive market. That with one move in terms of supply or demand or sentiment makes massive price swings, and that's something very unusual that we almost weren't used to with S&P. So there's been a lot of questions, of course, over the last week with guys, what happened? What's happening? We're not used to seeing this.
Jasper, I have two questions for you about this because, the first question is you'll probably expect is, okay, sure, the correction was, as if I hear you guys, was a bit out of whack, maybe, a bit higher than expected. Like most corrections go, they're not exactly at the fair price level. So let's discuss that. What are our expectations coming from here? Will it go down? Do we expect stabilization at this price level? But for me, another question is, of course, you showed us the production graph. You showed us this massive dip on non-fat production in the US in Q4 25. But it's always easy from our position, like being Captain Hindsight. Okay, hey, of course, now we see it was 10% lower, or this could have been expected. But we also know that production figures don't come out until it's usually too late for this type of stuff. What could users have done to get a better head start on, hey, where's production? What can we expect from production on the non-fat side? What are the ways that you would look at this market?
Should I start with the second one?
Please.
I think one of the crucial parts here is looking at the valorization of several product streams. Of course, there's always a set contract for certain volume, so it's not like the overall production of non-fat can suddenly drop to zero because nobody's really interested anymore. That's not how it works. But in the bigger scheme of things, there's always a stream that earns more, and will therefore, for example, like cheese and whey, will have more production capacity expansion. And in this case, what we can have a look at is, and I need to have a look at this case, we can look at US. We're not going to look at this in euro. We're going to look at this in dollars. What we see, for example, is that non-fat and butter have been increasing incredibly in production, in valorization, basically since the start of halfway January. What this graph tells me is that non-fat and butter production since halfway throughout September wasn't earning you much money, but cheese was much better. This is also one of the reasons why the preference for producing non-fat was even lower than it was before. Valorization is a really interesting feature to look at what happens to like the top 5 or 10% of all the milk that's available. A lot of it goes into fresh streams. A lot of volumes are already contracted, so it's not like there's a massive spot market of milk. But for the limited volume that is going to that spot market, this is where you can see.
Yeah, what they often say is if you see a production numbers that are positive, that are in green, that means that there is a bit of a surplus, and that's often when you use the valorization models. Whenever there's a bit of a surplus and you don't know what to do with the milk, are we going to make some skim? Are we going to make some skim butter, of course, or some cheeses? So that's an extremely interesting one to see, and that has been so relevant over the last 6 months with those extremely green numbers we're seeing every month.
So looking indeed at the production graphs, I think we have cheese on top, for example. Well, cheese in general has been incredibly high throughout 2025. But I think if you look at the milk numbers for the United States, in this case, we'll actually have a look, not in metric ton, but in pounds. The latest numbers, 19.5 billion pounds of milk, if I do the math correctly. It's an increase of, 4.4, 4.49, 3.6% compared to the years before. So we have plenty of milk to go around. And in this case, some of it is going into, or at least more of it is likely going to go into non-fat and butter. So yes, the production volumes have been lower in Q4 last year, but January, which comes in a few weeks' time, we'll definitely see a bit of a recovery.
Okay.
Thank you for question 2. That's great. So use valorizations to know what's coming. Then, of course, back to the $1 million question, question 1.
And to repeat your question, what is the actually good price level for S&P? What are we going to expect from now onwards, right?
Yeah, or non-fat.
Non-fat. I think it's very fair to say, and you call the price movement extreme, and it's never really a textbook thing, but it's always kind of hard to determine what part of a bearish supply outlook is already priced into the actual commodity price. It's hard to determine. You can look at supply and demand levels, look at stock to use, and determine, okay, this is roughly where prices should be trading at. But it's sometimes hard to calculate what part of the price or price decrease is driven by the outlook rather than the current situation. Yep. So at this point, if we purely look at what's been happening over the past months, and actually zoom out a little bit to get even 5 years, because that's an even better picture. We're still at relatively cheap levels compared to what we had in years like 2022, and I don't think we're going to return to those levels at all.
No, that was a bit of a parenthesis. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and if we take, for example, the average of all 3 markets, I think these prices are still to be expected in 2026. I know that at the moment they're trading at much higher levels, but I do feel like towards a flush, especially when volumes are going to be picking up a little bit, we will be heading slightly lower towards these levels again.
Yeah,
I am a bit uncertain whether we will structurally go below these averages again. I do feel like, especially with the supply outlook worsening towards the second half of the year, that a price of just below $3,000 a ton is roughly where I think the market should hover.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to make an outlook for the euro-dollar exchange rate. By the way, that's a different point. But I think for global markets, just below 3,000 seems like a fairly acceptable level at this point.
Okay, maybe we should also ask our viewers on their outlook on the price trend of S&P/non-fat in the coming weeks, whether we expect it to go up further, stabilize at these price levels, or go back down, let's say, to around average levels. And
interaction to find them. If you see, there's a couple of things you can. Did I see it straight away?
Oh yeah, it should be in your top bar and under interaction in a poll. We have a new software, so it's always a good question if these things work. While we wait for any questions or any answers to come in here, what's the next product group that we're going to cover?
The other one that's been going through the roof, whey proteins.
Whey proteins,
and it feels like I'm repeating myself for the 23rd time already in the last years. But whey protein prices reached even higher levels than we had before. So starting with just European products, we're now trading at 16,000 euros a ton. And if you ask the right or wrong producer, depending on how you look at this, you can already get a price of 17, if not higher. It's immense. There's a massive shortage. Everybody still needs it. On the buying side, we definitely see that it's a no at first. But then, for example, for a blender that produces sports nutrition for all these smaller sports nutrition brands, they say, no, I'm not going to pay these prices. But then they have to explain their sports nutrition brand that they might not get product. And the answer then is that's not an option. So they come back and they have to buy again. Yeah. And it's not at 16 then. If you wait a week or two, it's probably at 16.2, 16.5. I at this point, it's really hard to determine where the limit is. And then it's not just Europe. The US is definitely also part of this race. If you look at US dollars per pound, it's 8.75 at the moment. It's
and is that for almost all proteins? So WPC, of course, WPI, probably same thing.
Yep.
Do you see the same thing? Do you see a lot of big demand for NPCs as well going up?
Yes and no. I think there's a couple of things that we're seeing at the same time. If I look at the US MPC, we've started our benchmark in halfway throughout 2024. It's been increasing, but
Yeah.
also because it's tied to non-fat pricing. So generally, a lot of the NPC producers have a non-fat contract, or sorry, an NPC contract based on
Yeah.
NDPs or CME, and they just put a multiplier on it based on the
And that kinda
protein
caps-
percentage.
yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
So that caps the increases. So yes, we've seen a bit more a bit higher prices. But in general, we also see more demand for milk proteins for anyone that has the option to switch away from the actual whey shake
Yeah.
and just is looking for flat out milk protein or dairy protein. They have the option to switch, and they're doing it. It's really difficult. I think we're really happy. One of our partners also gave us plant-based protein, for example. There's all these alternatives that are picking up steam, but not even close to the pace that WPC80 or WPI are increasing at.
And at this rate, I mean, let's imagine this keeps going up.
Yep.
We are probably, as a consumer, probably going to start feeling the load as well. Yeah.
That's definitely the case, and it's hard to determine where that breaking point will be, where several players say, okay, I can't eat up my margins this much, I have to increase my price. I think it's slowly happening already, but it's kind of hard to put my finger on. I do see that in general, most players are really still competing for market share.
Mhm.
So they rather keep their prices low, grab more consumers towards them, or pull more consumers towards them, and then hopefully beat some competitors, and then with the bigger market share that they have, increase their price. But it's hard if there's I don't know how many different protein brands we have by now, but it's massive, and beating everyone
Fierce
is
competition. Yeah.
exactly. It's very fierce competition. And one thing I'd like to add is, at the moment, Chinese New Year is also being celebrated. There's also the expectation that once that's over, there's a lot of Chinese demand coming back into the market, and I don't really see this.
Or do you feel like maybe they bought a lot before to kind of cover some volumes for a couple months, right? That's also probably
They have, but in general, there was a feeling that, okay, after the Q4 protein craze, in which everyone buys for Q1, so then they go for all the people that go to the gym have their protein in Q1, and then we can settle. That's also, just like milk powder, is not materialized at all, and therefore we really see kind of a more or at least increasing market, where people are just behind.
I mean, it does feel like we're entering into uncharted territory for those proteins. A new market that we're not used to. It doesn't follow the fundamentals that we used to have. It follows new fundamentals with a completely new demand that we're not used to. With a supply that cannot follow it for the moment. So yeah, there will definitely be, that is, if you think about the coming few years, the space where a lot of eyes are going to be, and a lot of investments, of course, because that is the new big thing.
And that's a tricky. Sorry, if I go ahead.
Oh, sorry, but I think we have two great questions came in through the chat, and now we're talking about investments in the whey space. I think it's good to cover the first one first, and that's the question whether whey production is currently maximized, and if so, when are we going to see some expansion on the whey side?
Yes, it's maximized. Anyone who has additional capacity has already been filling it for a while. That's also what you see, for example, why whey concentrate prices throughout Europe, but also as far as possible in the US, they're increasing, simply because everyone who has availability and can buy spot whey, we have plenty of cheese production, so there is a lot of spot liquid whey available, will pull it towards their whey protein plant. Luckily, there is some production facility coming online. WPI, for example, in Europe, we have Q2, Q3 towards that point or midpoint. There will be a bit of additional volume. In Dutch, you say it's a drop. I don't think in English is a drop in the ocean. If I translate it correctly. It's a bit excessive because it will matter, of course. We have a bit more volume available. That means that there's less stress on the availability, but I don't think it's enough to turn this market around. I really feel like this should come from the demand side before we really see a big change. But we have some factories coming in Europe, in the US last year. They came online, which had some issues. And then this year, there is going to be more WPI coming from there. So on a global level, we will have more. But balancing that out compared to the increase in consumption, I'm not sure it's going to be enough.
Okay, so we'll actually need to have consumers feel the price increases to see meaningful change here. For
Yeah,
some
no,
destruction.
just like what Seb said with the croissants, for example, if we consume less and therefore the total demand is less. But if we don't lower our demand at these higher prices, then it only has to come from supply, and it's generally it takes much longer.
Yeah, and I think the second, also a really good question. You related also MPC increases due to the whey increases, and we got a question that whether between SMP, so the skim milk component, and WPC, which factor is likely to drive MPC price change more significantly?
That's got to be SMP. In essence, the milk proteins and whey proteins are the products in which they are used is very, very different. So yes, we have people that have previously used whey protein and some milk powder and are now doing milk protein. So there is some switching available, but generally whey protein is a completely different end product than where milk protein or SMP are used. So in the US, because of the multiples, SMP and MPC will still go hand in hand. And also in Europe, I don't think we're going to really see a disconnect between SMP and MPC just yet.
Yeah.
One more question in this space, and I think it's a difficult one. I don't think you have the answer laying around straight away, but that's of course the question that we hear more often. That's whether plant-based protein or blend versions will cause WPC/WPI prices to come down.
It's a good question. I was at the International Whey Conference, I think a year and a bit ago in Dublin, and this is also something that was mentioned, and also during many of the other Ökolä or conferences.
Mhm.
Plant-based milk is definitely a topic, but it's always kind of written off as not interesting enough, or precision fermentation, for example, too expensive. I don't think we're there yet. But in whey, I think like the biggest driver for changes like these is price. And if we now compare pea protein isolate to whey protein isolate, I think the difference is like 300%. So we are moving towards levels in which changes are going to be faster than they did before. I don't have an answer indeed, Fike, on an exact level, but I do feel like we are really accelerating that process at the moment.
Yeah, and it will either happen on both sides, right? It's either demand or supply. Either on the demand side, us as consumers, we will switch because of prices increase. We will start switching to a cheaper alternative, or the supply is going to pick up. But I mean, as we said, it's going to take a few years, but supply is going to pick up. There is investments, there is new plants being built. But I think I agree with you on the short term. I don't see the switch happening on the short term anytime soon.
Yeah, and in terms of investment climate, of course, if we compare it to like the situation between 23, 24, where we had WPI below 10K, at around 8K, it's a lot harder to make a business case for an alternative protein stream than if you compare it to now where it's at 30K.
That does accelerate the amount of investments coming in. 100%. Yeah, I agree with you.
Awesome. We have 3 minutes left, and we have our poll back. And this is so going back to non-fat/SMP pricing.
Yeah.
Does it surprise you that almost 50% says that price will go down?
No, not really. I think it's fair that after an increase like this, which is we've overshot what we should have increased by, but there's no textbook. I think it's fair to say the prices will fall a little bit and find a new level where they have a bit more balance.
Yeah.
But also the level that we started off the year with was very cheap.
Yeah, under 2,000 euros. I mean, that was extremely cheap. And I think that's also why it accelerated, because a lot of people were like, well, it is so cheap. If I buy it today, or if I buy next week, it'll be the same thing. There was so little movement. But yeah, everything was concentrated within a month. So I do agree that now that it seems to be a bit more stabilized, and there was a big short position, which we talked about.
Yep.
So I do believe that we'll see a bit more of a down. Down doesn't mean 500 euros, right? Down could mean 50 euros. So
yeah, I'm going to ask you guys one more question, because does it then surprise you, because we've accounted for 47% of people thinking that it goes down, but does it surprise you that almost an equal amount of the other half of the respondents believe that it either goes up or it's stabilized at this level?
Not really. I think of course, it's interesting that there's different opinions at this point, and that's really confirmed by the fact that many haven't really taken a position in recent weeks. They don't know what's going to happen, and ultimately, if you ask me, short term we have a bit of a bearish, or at least a slightly weaker market. I'm not going to call it bearish because it's not. But if we look ahead, like the risk is upward. It's not downward. So that really kind of on the long term and zooming out, milk production is going to scale down. It's not going to be as good as it was this year, at least 2025. So the risk is up, but in the short term, I do feel like slightly lower prices is the way forward.
Yeah.
Thanks for covering this. Well, we've reached our half hour. That means we haven't been able to cover cheese markets, but luckily yesterday you published your latest report, Jasper, which you can now see a button to on the screen where you can read the full cheese report with insights per product. So we hope to meet our users there. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, and we hope to see you back again in 2 weeks as well. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to send them in, of course. If you have suggestions for topics, speakers, feedback, opinions, please keep them coming. We'd always love to hear from you guys about this. Jasper, Seb, thank you so much for your insights today.
Great.
Welcome.
Thanks, Feiko. Thanks, Jasper.
See you in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.